Did you know one of the deadliest corporate failures in modern history wasn't caused by a single malfunction, but by a series of business decisions where speed slowly replaced safety? For most of the 20th century, Boeing wasn't just a manufacturer, it was a promise. A promise that engineering came first. That safety was sacred. That if a Boeing aircraft was in the sky, every possible failure had already been imagined and prevented. Pilots trusted Boeing, regulators trusted Boeing, passengers trusted Boeing without thinking twice. That trust took decades to build, and only a few years to destroy. The Boeing story begins with engineers, real ones. Men and women who believed aviation demanded humility, because gravity doesn't forgive arrogance. Early Boeing culture revolved around one question: what happens if this fails? Redundancy wasn't a cost. It was a necessity. Margins were secondary. Lives were not. But cultures don't collapse suddenly. They erode, quietly. In 1997, Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas. On paper, it was a strategic win. In reality, it was a philosophical takeover. McDonnell Douglas had struggled financially for years. Its culture was different. Cost-cutting mattered. Deadlines mattered. Shareholders mattered. After the merger, something subtle shifted inside Boeing. The balance of power moved away from engineers and toward executives trained in finance. The questions changed. Not is this safe, but is this competitive? Is this fast enough? Is this good for the stock? At first, no one noticed. Planes still flew, accidents were rare, but the priorities were no longer aligned with the sky. Then came Airbus. In the early 2000s, Airbus wasn't just competing, it was winning. Airlines loved its planes. They were fuel efficient, modern, designed for the economics of a new era. In 2010, Airbus announced the A320 and NEO. New engines, lower fuel burn, lower operating costs. Airlines immediately placed massive orders. This was an existential threat. Boeing faced a choice: design a brand new aircraft from scratch, which would take nearly a decade, or retrofit an old one. Time mattered more than perfection, so Boeing chose the shortcut, the 737. A plane first designed in the 1960s, it had been stretched, updated, modified for decades, but it had limits. The new engines required for fuel efficiency were larger. They didn't fit neatly under the wing. To make them fit, Boeing moved them forward and higher. That changed the plane's behavior. At high angles of attack, the nose tended to rise. Too much rise means a stall. In aviation, stalls kill. So Boeing did what software companies do. It added a patch, MTS, Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, a system designed to automatically push the nose down. In theory, it made the MAX feel like previous 737s. In practice, it introduced a new failure point. MKS relied on one single angle of attack sensor. If that sensor fed bad data, MKS would repeatedly force the nose downward. Pilots could fight it, but only if they knew what was happening. Here's where business pressure became lethal. Boeing wanted airlines to adopt the MAX quickly. Airlines wanted minimal retraining. Simulators cost money. Time cost money. So Boeing marketed the MAX as just another 737. MCAS was barely mentioned in pilot manuals. Some pilots never knew it existed. Internal emails later revealed engineers were worried. They warned about sensor redundancy. They warned about training gaps. They warned about timelines. But warnings slow production. And slowing production risked losing to Airbus. The pressure wasn't abstract, it was measurable. Orders, market share, stock price. Safety became a variable instead of a constant. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta. Minutes later, it plunged into the Java Sea. 189 people died. The cause wasn't immediately clear. Boeing's response was cautious but defensive. The narrative leaned toward pilot error, a tragic mistake. But families had questions. Pilots worldwide noticed similarities. Then in March 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed shortly after takeoff. 157 more people died. Same aircraft, same behavior. Now the pattern was undeniable. The world grounded the 737 MAX everywhere, except the United States at first. When regulators finally grounded it, trust had already collapsed. Investigations uncovered what pressure had hidden. MCAS could activate repeatedly without pilot input. It overpowered manual controls. It assumed a single sensor could never fail. Certification had been rushed. Oversight had been delegated back to Boeing itself. The Fox wasn't just guarding the henhouse, it built it. Executives testified, emails leaked. One message joked about deceiving regulators, another mocked simulator training. The language was chilling. Not because it was evil, but because it was casual. This wasn't a conspiracy, it was normalization. Normalization of risk. Boeing lost billions, but families lost everything. Settlements followed, apologies followed, but apologies don't restore trust in gravity. The 737 MAX was redesigned, software updated, sensors doubled, but something fundamental had broken. Boeing's identity. A company that once defined safety had outsourced its conscience. The tragedy wasn't that Boeing made a mistake. Mistakes happen. The tragedy was that warnings were known and overridden. Because saying stop had become harder than saying ship it, Boeing almost won. It could have paused. It could have built a new aircraft. It could have accepted temporary losses. Instead, it optimized for speed, and speed erased margins that lives depend on. Aviation does not tolerate shortcuts. Physics doesn't care about quarterly earnings. And when systems designed to protect people are weakened by pressure, failure stops being hypothetical. Boeing still builds planes, but the era of unquestioned trust is over. Because once safety becomes negotiable, every decision leaves a shadow. And in the skybound, the West, the shadows fall silently until they don't.